The mining ship. Bright Star moved slowly through the asteroid field, its metal hull creaking under the pressure of deep space. Inside the cramped living quarters, 12-year-old Nari pressed her small hands against her temples, trying to stop. The familiar tingling that meant another episode was coming. Her older brother Minho glanced at her with worry. "Nari, are you feeling it again?" She nodded, her large violet eyes already beginning to glow with the strange energy that coursed through her body. This was her curse, the thing that made her different from everyone else in her family. While other children of her species could touch the precious energy crystals that powered their civilization, Nari's body rejected them violently. "Father, she's having another episode," Minho called out to the front of the ship. Keth, their father, turned around with frustration written across his weathered face. His own eyes, like all adults of their kind, had long since turned the deep blue of maturity. "Not now, Nari. We're so close to finishing this harvest." But Nari couldn't control it. The energy built up inside her like electricity in a storm cloud. Her body began to shake as bright white light poured from her skin. She tried to move away from the storage containers, filled with months of carefully collected crystals, but her legs wouldn't obey her. "Get her away from the harvest," Keth shouted, but it was too late. The energy burst from Nari in all directions like a silent explosion. Every crystal in their storage containers cracked and shattered, turning from brilliant gems into worthless dust. The family's entire profit for the season disappeared in seconds. The ship fell silent except for the gentle hum of the engines. Nari collapsed to the floor, exhausted and shaking. Her mother, Sujin, knelt beside her, stroking her hair gently, but even she couldn't hide the disappointment in her eyes. 3 months of work, Keth whispered, staring at the ruined crystals. 3 months and we have nothing to show for it. Nari's younger sister, Yuna, started to cry. At only 8 years old, she understood that this meant no new clothes, no better food, no repairs for their aging ship. Their family lived harvest to harvest, and now they had nothing. "I'm sorry," Nari whispered, her voice barely audible. "I tried to stop it." Keth sat heavily in his pilot chair, his head in his hands. This wasn't the first time Nari's condition had cost them money, but it was the worst. The episodes were getting stronger as she grew older, and the doctors on their home world had no cure to offer. "We can't keep doing this," he said quietly. "Every time we get close to making enough money to improve our lives, she destroys it all." "She's our daughter," Sujin said firmly, but her voice lacked its usual strength. "She's a burden," Keth replied, the words hanging in the air like poison. "Look at Yuna. Look at Minho. They deserve better than this. They deserve a chance at a real life, not constant poverty because their sister can't control herself." The next few days passed in tense silence. The family barely spoke to each other, and Nari spent most of her time in the small sleeping area, trying to stay out of everyone's way. She could feel her family's resentment growing stronger with each passing hour. When they reached the edge of human territory, Keth made an announcement. "There's an old mining station here. We need to stop." "For supplies." The station looked dead from the outside. No lights, no radio signals, no signs of life. It was one of hundreds of abandoned human outposts scattered throughout this region of space, left behind when the humans moved their operations deeper into the galaxy. "Why are we stopping here?" Minho asked. Keth didn't answer directly. Instead, he gathered some supplies into a bag and handed Nari her small backpack. "You need to come with me to check if the station is safe." Nari followed her father through the airlock and into the empty station. The corridors were dark and cold, filled with the smell of old metal and stale air. Emergency lights flickered weakly, casting strange shadows on the walls. "Father, I don't like this place," Nari said, staying close to him. Keth led her to what looked like a small living area with some old furniture and working air recyclers. He set down the bag of supplies and turned to face his daughter. "Nari, you're going to stay here for a while." "What do you mean? Where are you going?" Keth couldn't meet her eyes. "The family needs to move on. We need to find work that your condition won't interfere with." The truth hit Nari like a physical blow. "You're leaving me here?" "It's better this way. For everyone. Please don't leave me alone," Nari begged, grabbing onto her father's arm. "I promise I'll try harder to control it. I promise I won't ruin anything else." Keth gently pulled away from her grasp. "There's enough food and water here for 3 days. Maybe someone will find you. Maybe the humans will come back." He walked toward the exit, each step echoing in the empty station. At the doorway, he paused without turning around. "I'm sorry, Nari. I really am." Then he was gone, and Nari was alone in the darkness of the abandoned station. She ran to the small window and watched as her family's ship powered up and flew away, taking everyone she had ever loved with it. 3 days later, salvage captain G1 guided his small ship, Lucky Break, toward the abandoned mining station. At 45 years old, he had been working these dead zones for over a decade, collecting scrap metal and forgotten technology that he could sell to the colonies. It was lonely work, but it kept him busy and far away from painful memories. His scanner showed the station had some valuable computer cores that might still be working. "Another day, another credit," he muttered to himself, putting on his environment suit. The station's atmosphere readings looked breathable, but he never took chances with alien technology. G1 docked his ship to the station's loading bay and stepped inside. The place felt like a tomb, all shadows and silence. His flashlight cut through the darkness as he made his way toward the computer center. He had done this hundreds of times before, in dozens of dead stations just like this one. But something was different here. There were signs that someone had been living in the station recently. Food containers, water bottles, and a small bag in what looked like a makeshift bedroom. G1 frowned and drew his sidearm. Pirates sometimes used abandoned stations as hideouts. "Hello?" he called out. "Anyone here?" A weak sound came from deeper in the station, like someone crying. G1 followed the noise carefully, his weapon ready. What he found made him stop in his tracks. A small alien girl sat curled up in a corner, shivering and barely conscious. She looked no older than 10 or 11 in human years, with pale blue skin and violet eyes that seemed too big for her thin face. Her clothes were torn and dirty, and she looked like she hadn't eaten in days. When she saw him, she tried to scramble backward, but was too weak to move far. "Please," she whispered in broken human language through a small translation device. "No hurt. Please, no hurt." Jiwan's first instinct was to call the authorities. Alien children didn't just appear on abandoned stations by accident. This could be some kind of trap, or she could be carrying diseases that were dangerous to humans. His training as a former colonial defense officer told him to be careful. But something in her eyes stopped him. They were filled with pure terror and desperation. The same look he had seen in his own daughter's eyes 5 years ago during the raid on New Sol Colony. Hana had been 7 years old when the alien pirates attacked their settlement. G1 had been off-world on a supply run, and by the time he returned, the colony was in ruins. He found his wife already dead and his daughter dying in the wreckage of their home, calling for her daddy with her last breath. That was why he lived. Alone now, salvaging in the empty spaces between worlds. That was why he had sworn never to trust aliens again, and yet, looking at this frightened child, all he could see was Hana. "Are you hurt?" he asked, putting away his weapon and kneeling down slowly. The girl shook her head, but G1 could see she was lying. Her breathing was shallow, and her skin had an unhealthy grey tint. Whatever species she was clearly sick. "Where are your parents?" At this question, the girl's eyes filled with tears. "Gone," she said simply. "Left me. Said I am broken." G1 felt something twist in his chest. He had spent 5 years hating aliens for what they had done to his family, but this child looked just as lost and abandoned as he felt most days. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Nari," she whispered. "I'm G1. Are you hungry, Nari?" She nodded weakly. G1 went back to his ship and returned with some protein bars and water. He watched as she ate slowly, her small hands shaking as she held the food. She was clearly starving, but she ate carefully, like someone who wasn't sure when her next meal would come. "How long have you been here alone?" 3 days. Maybe 4. Hard to tell in dark. G1 studied her face. She was definitely dying. Her species clearly wasn't meant to survive in this kind of environment without proper care. If he left her here, she would be dead within a day or 2. Every logical part of his mind told him to leave, to call the colonial authorities and let them deal with it. This wasn't his problem, and getting involved with aliens had already cost him everything he cared about once before. But as he looked at Nari, all he could think about was Hana. How scared she must have been in those final moments. How much he would have given for someone, anyone, to have helped her when she needed it most. "Can you walk?" he asked. Nari tried to stand but stumbled. Ji-won caught her before she fell, surprised by how light she was. She was clearly malnourished and exhausted. "Come on," he said, lifting her gently. "You're coming with me." "Where?" she asked, her violet eyes wide with fear. "Somewhere safe, somewhere you can get help." As he carried her toward his ship, Ji-won wondered what he was doing. He was risking everything for a child of the same species that had destroyed his family. But as Nari's small hand gripped his shirt trustingly, he realized he couldn't live with himself if he walked away. Maybe saving one alien child wouldn't bring back his daughter, but it was something Hana would have wanted him to do. She had always been kind to everyone, even strangers. "It's going to be okay," he told Nari as he settled her into the passenger seat of his ship. "I promise." Ji-won's ship approached Kepler Station 3 days later, with Nari getting weaker by the hour. The small alien girl had barely eaten anything and kept having strange episodes where her skin would glow with that weird energy. Each time it happened, she seemed to get a little worse. Kepler Station wasn't the kind of place most people wanted to visit. It existed in the grey areas between human and alien space, where doctors asked no questions and treated anyone willing to pay. The station looked rough from the outside, covered in patches and jury-rigged parts, but Ji-won knew it was his best chance to get Nari proper medical care without involving the authorities. "Stay close to me," he told Nari as they walked through the crowded docking bay. "This place can be dangerous." The station was full of smugglers, mercenaries, and people running from various governments. Nari pressed close to Ji-won's side, her violet eyes taking in all the strange sights and sounds. Most people ignored them, but a few gave curious looks at the unusual pair. Dr. Minji's clinic was located in the lower levels of the station, away from the main traffic. Ji-won had dealt with her before when he'd been injured during a salvage run. She was one of the few doctors who specialized in treating different alien species, and she never asked awkward questions about how patients ended up needing her help. "Well, this is interesting," Dr. Minji said when she saw them enter her clinic. She was a woman in her 30s with short black hair and tired eyes that had seen too much. "What do we have here?" "She's sick," Ji-won said simply. "Can you help her?" Dr. Minji examined Nari carefully, running various scans and tests. The young alien girl was patient during the examination, though she kept looking to Ji-won for reassurance. It was clear she trusted him completely now, which made something warm spread through his chest. "Her species is called Vorthak," Dr. Minji explained as she studied the test results. "They're energy-based life forms, but this child is different. Her neural pathways are completely unique." "Is that why she has those seizures?" Ji-won asked. "Tell me about these seizures." Ji-won described what he had witnessed, how Nari's skin would glow and energy would pour out of her. Dr. Minji's eyes grew wider as he spoke. "That's not a medical condition," she said, excitement creeping into her voice. "That's an evolutionary adaptation. She's not having seizures. She's perceiving quantum energy flows in space-time." "What does that mean in simple terms?" Dr. Minji turned to her computer and pulled up a complex star chart. "Space isn't empty. It's full of currents and flows of energy that we can't normally see. Ships have to navigate carefully around dangerous areas because we can't detect these flows. But if someone could see them, they could navigate through space much more safely," Ji-won finished, understanding dawning on him. "Exactly. This child has an ability that could change everything about how we travel between stars." "No. Wonder her family abandoned her. They probably thought she was cursed." Nari had been listening quietly, and now she spoke up. "Father said I was broken, that I ruin everything." Dr. Minji knelt down to Nari's level. "You're not broken, sweetheart. You're special in a way that most people just don't understand yet." Over the next few days, while Dr. Minji worked on treatments to help Nari control her abilities better, Ji-won found himself spending more and more time with the young alien. She was curious about everything, asking endless questions about human culture and customs. "Why do humans keep pictures of dead people?" she asked one day. pointing to a small photo of Hana that Ji-won kept in his wallet. The question caught him, off guard. He had been avoiding thinking about his daughter since finding Nari. "To remember them," he said quietly. "She looks kind," Nari said, studying the picture. "Like you." "She was the best person I ever knew," Ji-won said, his voice thick with emotion. "She would have liked you." Nari reached out and took his hand with her small one. "I'm sorry she's gone." For the first time in 5 years, Ji-won felt some of the pain in his heart begin to heal. Caring for Nari was bringing back parts of himself he thought had died with his family. Their peaceful time was interrupted when station security arrived at the clinic. The lead officer was a large, scarred man who clearly enjoyed intimidating people. "We heard there's an unregistered alien here," he said, pushing into the clinic. "That's against station regulations." "She's under medical care," Dr. Minji protested. "Not anymore. We're confiscating her for questioning." Ji-won stepped between the security officers and Nari. "She's with me. I'm her guardian." "You don't have papers for that," the officer sneered. "Stand aside, human." When Ji-won didn't move, the officer drew his plasma weapon. "Last warning. Then you'll have to go through me," Ji-won said calmly. The plasma blast hit him in the shoulder, spinning him around and dropping him to the floor. The energy weapon left a burning wound that made him cry out in pain, but he still tried to get between Nari and the officers. "Stop!" Nari shouted, her skin beginning to glow with that familiar energy. "Don't hurt him." The energy that poured out of her this time was different, more controlled. Instead of exploding outward randomly, it formed a protective barrier around Ji-won. The security officers stumbled backward in surprise. "She's some kind of weapon," one of them yelled. Dr. Minji quickly activated the clinic's emergency lockdown, sealing the doors. That should hold them for a while, but not long. Nari rushed to Ji-won's side, her small hands glowing with gentle energy as she touched his wounded shoulder. To his amazement, the pain began to fade and the burn started to heal. "How did you do that?" he asked in wonder. "My people are healers too," she said softly. "Mother taught me before they left me." As Nari healed his wound, Ji-won realized something important had changed between them. They weren't just a man and an alien child anymore. They were family, chosen and forged through caring for each other. "We need to get out of here," Dr. Minji said urgently. "Those security officers will be back with reinforcements." Ji-won stood up, testing his healed shoulder. "Then we better move fast." As they prepared to leave the station, Nari looked up at him with those big violet eyes. "Thank you for protecting me." "That's what family does," Ji-won replied, and meant every word. Word spread fast in the underground networks of Kepler Station. Within hours of their escape from the clinic, every bounty hunter and information broker knew about the alien girl with special abilities. Dr. Minji had helped them get to Ji-won's ship, but she couldn't hide what had happened during the security confrontation. Ji-won was checking his ship's systems when his communication panel lit up with an incoming military transmission. The stern face of Admiral Park appeared on the screen, her uniform decorated with the insignia of Human Colonial Defense. "Captain Ji-won Lee, this is Admiral Park of the Colonial Fleet. We need to discuss the alien child in your custody." "I don't know what you're talking about," Ji-won replied, but his hand moved protectively toward where Nari was hiding behind his pilot's seat. "Don't play games with me, Captain. We have reports that this child possesses abilities that could benefit human navigation technology. Turn her over to us for proper study, and you'll be well compensated." Ji-won's blood ran cold. The way the Admiral said study made it clear they saw Nari as a test subject, not a person. "She's not for sale. This isn't a negotiation. That alien represents a strategic advantage for humanity. If you don't cooperate, you'll be charged with harboring enemy assets." Before Ji-won could answer, another ship appeared on his sensors. This one was different, sleek and organic-looking, clearly of alien design. A new communication came through, and the face that appeared was similar to Nari's, but older and harder. "I am War Captain Tayek of the Vorthak Fleet," the alien said, in perfect human language. "I have come for the contaminated child." Nari gasped and grabbed Ji-won's arm. "That's my uncle," she whispered, terror filling her voice. "He was always the cruelest one in our family." The child is an abomination, Tak continued. Her existence violates our genetic purity laws. I will destroy her and anyone who protects her. Admiral Park's voice cut back in. Captain Lee, you now have two choices. Hand the child over to us for protective custody, or face both human military action and alien attack. Ji-won looked down at Nari, who was shaking with fear. In just a few days, she had gone from being abandoned by her family to being hunted by both species, all because she had abilities that others wanted to control or destroy. Neither of you are getting her, Ji-won said firmly, cutting off both communications. He immediately fired up his engines and shot away from Kepler Station, heading for the dangerous Crimson Nebula. It was a region of space that most ships avoided because of unpredictable energy storms and gravitational anomalies, but it might be their only chance to escape. Both the human and alien ships followed, closing in fast. Ji-won's small salvage vessel wasn't built for combat or high-speed chases. Within minutes, they were surrounded. Captain Lee, this is your final warning, Admiral Park transmitted. Surrender the alien, or we will disable your ship. Take's ship moved closer on the other side. The child dies today, human. Stand aside, or die with her. The first shots came from both directions. Ji-won threw his ship into evasive maneuvers, diving toward the edge of the nebula. Energy blasts lit up the space around them, as both pursuers tried to disable his engines without destroying the ship completely. They're too fast, Ji-won muttered, struggling with the controls. I can't outrun them both. That's when Nari stood up, her skin already beginning to glow with that familiar energy. I can help, she said quietly. No, Ji-won said immediately. Dr. Minji said using your abilities hurts you. I won't let you damage yourself to save me. But if I don't help, they'll catch us anyway, Nari pointed out. And then Uncle Tak will kill me, and the humans will probably experiment on me until I die anyway. Another blast rocked their ship, and warning lights began flashing all over the control panel. They were running out of options fast. There, Nari said, pointing ahead into the swirling clouds of the nebula. I can see the safe paths through the energy storms. The other ships can't follow us there. Ji-won hesitated. He could see the pain in Nari's eyes every time she used her abilities. Each episode left her a little weaker, a little more fragile. But if they were caught, she would suffer far worse. Okay, he said finally. But the moment we're safe, you stop. Promise me. I promise. Nari placed her small hands on the ship's navigation console, and her entire body lit up with brilliant white energy. Through the view screen, Ji-won could suddenly see what she was seeing. Currents of power flowing through space like invisible rivers, safe channels between deadly energy storms. Following her guidance, he piloted the ship deep into the nebula. Behind them, both pursuing vessels tried to follow but were immediately caught in violent energy discharges. The human ship pulled back quickly, but Taik's vessel, driven by hatred, pushed further in and was badly damaged by a massive energy storm. For 20 minutes, Nari guided them through the impossible maze of the nebula's interior. But Ji-won could see the effort was destroying her. Her skin grew paler, her breathing became labored, and small streams of silver blood began trickling from her nose. That's enough, he said when they finally reached a calm area deep in the nebula's heart. You did it. We're safe. Nari collapsed into the co-pilot seat, exhausted and shaking. I can barely see the energy flows anymore, she whispered. Each time I use it, it gets harder. Ji-won knelt beside her chair, gently wiping the blood from her face. Then we won't use it anymore. We'll find another way. But what if the humans could really use my ability to help people? What if I could save lives by helping their ships navigate safely? It was the question that had been haunting Ji-won since Dr. Minji's revelation. Nari's abilities could indeed revolutionize human space travel, potentially saving thousands of lives. But using those abilities was slowly killing her. The choice is yours, he said finally. But whatever you decide, I'll support you. You're not alone anymore. As they sat in the quiet safety of the nebula, both human and alien child had to face a terrible question. Was the potential to help many worth sacrificing one person's life? And could Ji-won live with himself if he let Nari make that choice? Outside, in the dangerous space beyond the nebula, their enemies waited, still determined to capture or kill the most important child in the galaxy. 2 weeks hiding in the nebula had given G1 time to think, but it had also made their situation worse. Nari was getting weaker every day, and their food supplies were running dangerously low. They couldn't stay hidden forever, and both human and alien forces were still searching for them outside the nebula's protective embrace. The decision was made for them when G1's emergency communicator crackled to life with a desperate transmission from Admiral Park. "All ships, this is Colonial Defense Command. We are under massive attack at the Titan shipyards. Repeat, the shipyards are under attack by a full Vorthak warfleet. We need all available vessels to respond immediately." G1's hands froze over the controls. The Titan shipyards were humanity's most important military facility, where they built the massive ships that protected human colonies throughout the galaxy. If the shipyards fell, humanity would be defenseless against future alien attacks. "They're losing," Nari said quietly, her pale face glowing softly as she sensed the energy flows of the distant battle. "I can feel the ships dying from here. Uncle Taik brought the entire war fleet." "That's not our problem," G1 said, but his voice lacked conviction. "We need to stay hidden until this blows over." Nari stood up slowly, her legs shaky but her voice determined. "Those ships have families on them. People like you who love their children. I can't let them die just to keep myself safe." "Using your abilities again could kill you," G1 reminded her. "Dr. Minji said each time damages your nervous system more, and if I don't help, thousands of humans will die, including the people who might have been kind to alien children someday." Nari looked at him with those big violet eyes that had seen too much pain. "You taught me that family means protecting each other, even when it's hard." G1 felt his heart breaking. In just a few weeks, this alien child had become more important to him than his own life, but he also knew she was right. They couldn't hide while innocent people died, especially when they had the power to help. "If we do this, we do it together," he said finally. "No matter what happens." The flight to the Titan shipyards took 3 hours, even at maximum speed. When they arrived, the battle was going badly for the humans. Dozens of alien ships surrounded the massive construction facility, their weapons tearing apart the human defenders. Explosions lit up space as human vessels exploded one by one. G1 opened a communication channel to Admiral Park's flagship. "Admiral, this is Captain Lee. I'm here to help." "Captain Lee, thank God, we're being slaughtered out here. That alien fleet is using some kind of advanced navigation system that lets them move through our defensive formations like we're standing still." "I know," G1 replied, "and I know how to stop them." He could see Taik's command ship at the center of the alien formation, larger and more heavily armed than the rest. His uncle had brought the full might of the Vorthak warfleet to ensure Nari's destruction, but in doing so he had revealed their military capabilities to humanity. "Nari, can you see their movement patterns?" G1 asked. The young alien girl placed her hands on the navigation console, and her skin began to glow with that familiar energy. This time, though, the light was different, brighter and more intense than ever before. "I can see everything," she whispered, her voice filled with wonder and pain. "All the energy flows, all the safe paths through space, but also, I can see how they're using the quantum currents to move so quickly. Can you guide our ships to block their escape routes?" "Yes, but..." Nari's voice became strained. "But to do it properly, to save all those people, I'll have to use everything I have left." G1 reached over and took her small hand in his. "Are you sure about this?" "I'm sure," she said, squeezing his fingers. "This is what I choose." For the next hour, Nari guided the human fleet through an impossible dance of tactical movements. Following her directions, human ships appeared exactly where the alien vessels least expected them, cutting off their escape routes and forcing them into vulnerable positions. Admiral Park's voice crackled over the communication system as the tide of battle turned. "Incredible. It's like we can predict their every move." But G1 could see the cost. With each passing minute, Nari grew paler and weaker. Silver blood flowed freely from her nose, and her breathing became labored and shallow. "Almost done," she gasped. "Just need to guide them into the trap around Uncle Taik's ship." The final maneuver required every bit of her remaining strength. Nari's entire body blazed with energy as she showed the human fleet exactly how to surround the alien. Command vessel! When the trap closed, Tyke found himself outnumbered and outgunned. His war fleet scattered and defeated. Then Nari collapsed. Ji-won caught her as she fell, her small body convulsing as her nervous system overloaded from the strain. Her eyes, once bright violet, had turned a dull grey and she was barely breathing. "Stay with me," he pleaded, applying the emergency medical techniques Dr. Minji had taught him. "You're going to be okay." Using the surgical supplies from his ship's emergency kit, Ji-won performed desperate field surgery to stabilize Nari's failing nervous system. His hands shook as he worked, but years of technical experience with delicate salvage equipment served him well. It took 2 hours, but finally her breathing stabilized. When Nari woke up 3 days later in a human military medical facility, the first thing she saw was Ji-won sitting beside her bed. "Did we win?" she asked weakly. "We won," he confirmed. "The alien fleet surrendered and the shipyards are safe." "And my uncle?" "In prison. He'll face trial for war crimes." Nari tried to sit up but found she was too weak. "I can't see the energy flows anymore," she said quietly. "They're completely gone. I know, but you're alive and that's all that matters to me." Their peaceful reunion was interrupted when Admiral Park entered the medical bay with several other military officers. "The child needs to come with us for debriefing and study," she announced. Her tactical insights during the battle were unprecedented. "No," Ji-won said firmly, standing between them and Nari's bed. "She's been through enough. Captain Lee, you don't understand the strategic importance." "I understand perfectly. You want to study her like a lab animal, but she's not a weapon or a tool. She's a child who just saved thousands of your people's lives." The argument continued for several minutes until Dr. Minji arrived with a stack of legal documents. "Actually, Admiral, you can't take her anywhere," the doctor said with a smile. "Captain Lee has officially adopted her under colonial law. Meet Nari Lee, newest citizen of the Human Colonial Federation." 6 months later, Ji-won stood in the doorway of a classroom on New Geneva Colony, watching as 12-year-old Nari taught a group of human children about Vorthak culture. She had learned to speak perfect human language and had made dozens of friends at her new school. "The Vorthak people aren't scary," she was explaining to her classmates. "They're just different from humans. They have families and feelings just like you do." One little boy raised his hand. "But why did they attack us?" "Because they were afraid," Nari answered honestly. "Fear makes people do bad things sometimes, but understanding each other can fix that." After class, Nari ran to Ji-won and hugged him tightly. "How was your day, Dad?" The words still made his heart skip a beat. He had never expected to be a father again, especially not to an alien child. But Nari had brought joy back into his life, in ways he never thought possible. "Better now," he said, hugging her back. "How was school?" "Great. Tomorrow we're having a cultural exchange day, and I'm going to teach everyone how to make Vorthak music." As they walked home together, Ji-won reflected on how much their lives had changed. Nari was no longer valued for her special abilities or feared for her differences. She was simply loved for who she was, a brave, kind, intelligent girl who had chosen to use her gifts to save others. She was his daughter now, and he was her father. Not because of genetics or species, but because they had chosen each other when it mattered most. That evening, as Nari did her homework at the kitchen table, she looked up at Ji-won with those grey eyes that had lost their special sight, but gained something more important, the light of happiness. "Dad, do you think other families like ours exist out there? Humans and aliens taking care of each other?" Ji-won smiled, thinking of all the possibilities the future might hold. "I hope so, sweetheart." "I really hope so,"